Claire stood in her kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel as she glanced at the clock for the 5th time in 20 minutes. Her son Jake was bringing his new girlfriend over for Sunday dinner, and Claire found herself more nervous than she expected to be. 3 years had passed since she lost her husband, and at 45, Claire had slowly rebuilt her life. Her modest home felt emptier these days, but she had made peace with the quiet. Now Jake was 25, living just across town, and this would be the first girlfriend he had brought home since college. Just be nice, Claire reminded herself, smoothing down her simple blue dress. She had made Jake's favorite pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the recipe her husband had loved. The table was set for 3, and a bottle of wine stood open to breathe. The doorbell rang, and Claire took a deep breath. She wasn't sure why she felt so unsettled. Maybe it was simply that Jake hadn't brought anyone home in so long. Coming, she called, hurrying to the door. Jake stood on the porch, his familiar smile warming Claire's heart as always. Beside him stood a young woman with honey-brown hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. "Mom, this is Emma," Jake said, his arm around the young woman's waist. "Emma, this is my mother, Claire." Emma stepped forward with a warm smile that reached her green eyes. "It's so nice to finally meet you, Mrs. Wilson. Jake talks about you all the time." "Please call me Claire," she said, surprised by the genuine warmth in Emma's voice. She had expected someone more. Well, she wasn't sure what she had expected, but it wasn't this bright-eyed young woman with an open face and a bottle of wine in her hands. "I brought dessert too," Emma added, holding up a paper bag. "Homemade apple tarts. Jake mentioned they were your favorite." Claire felt a small flutter of something unexpected in her chest. "That's very thoughtful. Please come in." The evening unfolded with surprising ease. Over dinner, Claire learned that Emma worked at the local library and was studying for her master's degree in literature. She spoke with passion about books and authors, and Claire found herself engaged in conversation in a way she hadn't been in years. "Claire, this pot roast is amazing," Emma said, helping herself to seconds. "Would you share the recipe? I've been trying to expand my cooking skills beyond desserts." "Of course," Claire replied, pleased. "It was my husband's favorite. I'd be happy to show you sometime." Jake looked between them with obvious pleasure. "See, Mom? I told you you'd like her." As they moved to the living room for coffee and Emma's apple tarts, Claire noticed the way Emma's hand rested so naturally on Jake's arm, the easy way they moved around each other. It had been so long since Claire had felt that kind of connection with anyone. Emma helped clear the dishes despite Claire's protests, and as they stood side by side at the sink, Emma asked about the small collection of poetry books on the kitchen windowsill. "You read Mary Oliver?" Emma asked, her face lighting up. "She's one of my favorites." "Mine too," Claire admitted, feeling strangely shy. "Her words always seem to find me when I need them most." Emma nodded with understanding. "That's exactly it. Like she's speaking directly to your heart." For a moment, they stood in a comfortable silence, and Claire felt a strange reluctance to break it. When the evening came to an end, Claire found herself standing on the porch, watching as Jake helped Emma into her coat. The night air was cool against her skin, and stars dotted the clear sky above them. "Thank you for dinner, Claire," Emma said, surprising her with a gentle hug. "I hope we can do this again soon." "I'd like that," Claire replied, and realized she truly meant it. As Jake and Emma walked to the car, hands intertwined, Claire felt an odd tug in her chest. She watched them drive away, the taillights of Jake's car disappearing around the corner. The house felt strangely empty when she went back inside. Claire picked up the empty wine glasses from the coffee table, noticing Emma had left one of her books behind, a collection of essays about women writers. A small note was tucked inside. "Thought you might enjoy this. Thanks for a lovely evening, Emma." Claire touched the note lightly with her fingertips. It had been a long time since someone had thought to share something personal with her, something that spoke to her interests rather than just her role as Jake's mother. As she got ready for bed that night, Claire found herself wondering when she would see Emma again, and the thought brought an unexpected smile to her face. She fell asleep with Emma's book on her nightstand, curious about what other surprises Jake's new girlfriend might bring into her quiet life. 3 days after the dinner, Claire walked into the local bookstore, a list in hand. She needed to find something new to read after finishing Emma's book of essays. The store was quiet on Tuesday morning, with just a few customers browsing the shelves. Claire ran her fingers along the spines of books in the literature section. She was so focused on the titles that she didn't notice someone approach until a familiar voice spoke. "Claire? What a nice surprise." She turned to find Emma smiling at her, holding a stack of books against her chest. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail today, showing off her delicate face. "Emma, I didn't expect to see you here," Claire said, feeling her heart beat a little faster. "Tuesday mornings are my favorite time to browse. The store is so peaceful," Emma explained. "Are you looking for something specific?" Claire showed her the list. "Just some new reading material. I finished the essays you left me. They were wonderful." Emma's eyes lit up. "You did? I'm so glad you liked them." She glanced at Claire's list. "Oh, you might love this author too." She pulled a book from the shelf. "Her writing reminds me of the essays, but with more personal stories." Their fingers brushed as Emma handed her the book, and Claire felt an unexpected warmth at the contact. She quickly looked down at the cover. "Thank you. I trust your recommendation, especially since you work at the library." Emma laughed softly. "Books are my life. Would you like to grab a coffee? The cafe here makes a great latte." Before she could think too much about it, Claire found herself sitting across from Emma at a small table by the window, sunlight streaming in and warming their hands around ceramic mugs. "How did you get into reading poetry?" Emma asked, leaning forward with genuine interest. Claire thought for a moment. "My husband wasn't much of a reader, and Jake was always more interested in sports. Poetry became my private world, something just for me. Especially after David died, the words helped me make sense of things when nothing made sense." Emma reached across and briefly touched Claire's hand. "I understand. Books have always been my safe place too." They talked for nearly an hour, moving from books to movies to their favorite places in town. Claire was surprised how easy it was to talk to Emma, how time seemed to slip away. "Oh, I'm going to be late for work," Emma suddenly said, checking her watch. "But I'm so glad we ran into each other." As they gathered their things, Emma paused. "Actually, there's a poetry reading at the community garden this Saturday. Would you like to come? Jake mentioned he has a work event." Claire hesitated. "Just the two of us." Emma nodded. "I'd really enjoy your company. No pressure, though." "I'd like that," Claire heard herself say. Saturday arrived with clear skies and mild weather. Claire spent more time than usual choosing her outfit, finally settling on a light blue sundress with a cardigan. She felt strangely nervous as she drove to the community garden. Emma was waiting at the entrance, wearing a simple yellow dress that made her look like sunshine. She waved when she saw Claire, her smile wide and welcoming. "You came. I'm so happy," Emma said, giving Claire a quick hug. The garden was beautiful, with flowers in full bloom and rows of vegetables growing in neat beds. Chairs had been set up near a small fountain, where local poets would read their work. As they found seats, Claire noticed how Emma's eyes danced with excitement. "I've been looking forward to this all week," Emma confessed. "Jake tries to be interested when I talk about poetry, but I can tell it's not really his thing." "My husband was the same way," Claire said with a small laugh. "He would listen, but his eyes would glaze over after a few minutes." The readings began, and Claire found herself aware of Emma beside her, the way she leaned forward when a poem moved her, the small sounds of appreciation she made, the warmth of her arm occasionally brushing against Claire's. During a break, they walked through the garden together, admiring the plants. Emma knew the names of many flowers that Claire couldn't identify, and Claire shared her knowledge of growing vegetables. "You should join the garden club," Emma suggested. "They meet here every Wednesday." "Maybe I will," Claire said, realizing she wanted more reasons to see Emma again. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the garden, they sat on a bench eating ice cream from a small cart that had arrived. "Thank you for coming with me today," Emma said softly. "It's nice to share something I love with someone who understands." Claire looked at Emma's profile in the fading light and felt something shift inside her chest, something both wonderful and frightening. She quickly looked away, focusing on her ice cream. "I had a lovely time," she said, and meant it more than she was ready to admit. Over the next few weeks, Claire found herself thinking about Emma more and more. They had met for coffee twice more, and each time, Claire discovered something new to admire about the young woman. Emma had joined the garden club too, and Wednesday afternoons quickly became the highlight of Claire's week. Jake had called to invite Claire to a family barbecue at his apartment on Sunday. "Emma's helping me plan everything," he said. "She says you two have become friends." "Yes," Claire replied, feeling a strange flutter in her stomach. "She's lovely." Sunday arrived warm and bright. Claire brought a homemade potato salad and wore a new summer dress she had bought on impulse the day before. She found herself checking her reflection in the car mirror before walking to Jake's door. The small backyard of Jake's apartment building was decorated with string lights and colorful paper lanterns. A few of Jake's friends from work were there, along with some neighbors. Emma rushed over when she saw Claire, giving her a warm hug. "I'm so glad you're here. Come see what Jake and I did with the garden boxes I told you about," Emma said, taking Claire's hand and leading her to the corner of the yard. Claire tried to ignore how natural it felt to have Emma's fingers wrapped around hers. The garden boxes were small but flourishing with herbs and cherry tomatoes. "You gave good advice about the basil," Emma said. "It's doing so much better now." They rejoined the party, and Claire found herself watching Emma throughout the afternoon. The way she laughed at Jake's jokes, how she made sure everyone had enough to eat, the gentle way she touched Jake's arm when she passed him. Each time, Claire felt a twinge of something she didn't want to name. As the evening cooled, someone started playing music. Jake pulled Emma into a dance, spinning her around the small yard. Claire sat on a bench, watching them, feeling oddly alone despite the crowd. When Jake went inside to get more drinks, Emma collapsed onto the bench beside Claire, cheeks flushed from dancing. "Having fun?" she asked, her shoulder touching Claire's. "It's a lovely party," Claire said, trying to keep her voice even. Emma leaned closer. "I've been meaning to ask you something. Jake mentioned you used to write." Claire blinked in surprise. "Did he? That was a long time ago. He said you were working on a novel before you got married but never finished it. Is it still around?" Claire hadn't thought about her manuscript in years. "It's in a drawer somewhere, gathering dust." "Would you let me read it someday?" Emma asked, her eyes bright with interest. "I bet it's wonderful." Before Claire could answer, Jake returned with drinks. The conversation shifted, but Claire couldn't stop thinking about her unfinished novel and about Emma wanting to read it. Later that night, after most guests had left, Claire found herself in Jake's kitchen, washing dishes while Jake and Emma said goodbye to the last friends. She stared out the window, lost in thought, when Emma's voice startled her. "Need some help?" They worked side by side in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Emma said, "I meant what I said earlier, about your novel." Claire passed a clean plate to Emma to dry. "It's not very good. I was young when I wrote it." "I still want to read it," Emma insisted. "Jake says you have so much talent." "Jake was always my biggest fan," Claire said with a small smile. Emma touched Claire's arm. "I would be too." Their eyes met, and something passed between them, something warm and electric that made Claire's heart race. She quickly looked away, focusing on the soapy water. Jake came in, breaking the moment. "Mom, you don't have to do those. Leave them for tomorrow." "It's no trouble," Claire said, grateful for the interruption. Later, as Claire prepared to leave, Emma hugged her goodbye. "Don't forget about your novel," she whispered. "I really want to read it." That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She got up and dug through her closet until she found the old box. Inside was her manuscript, yellowed with age but still intact. She sat on her bed and began to read, memories washing over her. At 3 a.m, she was still reading, lost in her own words from 20 years ago. The story was better than she remembered. A tale of a woman finding herself after loss, much like Claire's own journey after David died. When she finally put it down, Claire knew two things with absolute certainty. First, she wanted to finish this novel, and second, she was falling in love with her son's girlfriend. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands trembling, tears welling in her eyes. This couldn't happen. It was wrong in so many ways. Emma was with Jake. Emma was young enough to be her daughter. Emma was kind and beautiful, and everything Claire had stopped believing she would find again. Claire began to avoid Emma. When Jake called to invite her to dinner, she made excuses about being busy. When Emma texted to ask about meeting for coffee, Claire replied that she had too much work. It was easier this way, she told herself. Distance would help these unwanted feelings fade. She threw herself into her writing again, working on the novel that had sat untouched for so many years. The story flowed from her fingers as if it had been waiting all this time, and she found herself writing late into the night. Sometimes, as she wrote about her main character finding unexpected love, she thought of Emma's smile, and had to force herself to focus. 2 weeks passed this way. Claire missed 3 garden club meetings and turned down every invitation. Jake called one evening, concern in his voice. "Mom, is everything okay? Emma says you haven't been to garden club and you keep saying no to dinner." "I'm fine, honey," Claire said, trying to sound normal. "I've just been busy with my writing." "That's great about the writing, but we miss you. Emma especially keeps asking about you." Claire's heart skipped at those words. "I miss you both too," she admitted. "Maybe next week." After hanging up, Claire sat in her quiet house feeling miserable. She missed Emma's company more than she wanted to admit. The doorbell rang, startling her. When she opened the door, Emma stood there, holding a small potted plant. "Hi," Emma said, looking uncertain. "I hope it's okay that I came by. Jake gave me your address." Claire couldn't speak for a moment, caught between joy at seeing Emma and panic at being unprepared. "Your basil wasn't doing well at the garden," Emma continued, holding out the pot. "I thought maybe it needed some extra care at home." "That's very thoughtful," Claire managed to say. "Would you like to come in?" Emma followed her into the living room, where Claire's manuscript pages were spread across the coffee table. Emma's eyes widened. "You're working on your novel. That's wonderful, Claire." "Yes, I've been quite focused on it lately," Claire said, gathering the pages nervously. Emma sat on the couch, looking at Claire with those clear, direct eyes that seemed to see too much. "Have I done something wrong? You've been avoiding me." "No, of course not," Claire said quickly. "I've just been busy." "With the novel," Emma said, nodding. "May I ask what it's about?" Claire hesitated. "It's about a woman who loses her husband and has to find herself again." "Like you," Emma said softly. "Yes, I suppose so." Claire sat down, keeping a safe distance between them. "Sometimes writing helps me make sense of things." "What things?" Emma asked. Claire looked away. "Life, feelings, changes." A silence fell between them, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Emma said, "Jake thinks you don't like me anymore." "That's not true," Claire said, looking up quickly. "Not at all." "Then what is it?" Emma leaned forward. "We were becoming friends, and then suddenly you disappeared." Claire's hands trembled slightly. "It's complicated." "Try me," Emma said. Her expression was open, earnest. Claire took a deep breath. "I think it's better if we don't spend so much time together. You're Jake's girlfriend, and that's how it should be." Emma's face fell. "I don't understand. Why can't I be Jake's girlfriend and your friend too?" "Because every time I see you, I want more than friendship," Claire thought but couldn't say. "It's just better this way." Emma was quiet for a long moment. "I miss our talks," she finally said, her voice small. "No one else gets excited about the same books or understands why certain poems matter so much." Claire felt her resolve weakening. "I miss them too." "Then why push me away?" Emma reached out and touched Claire's hand. "What are you afraid of?" The touch sent warmth up Claire's arm. She pulled her hand away quickly. "I'm not afraid. I just think boundaries are important." Emma stood up, hurt visible in her eyes. "I thought we had something special. A connection. I guess I was wrong." "Emma, please," Claire began but stopped, unsure what to say. "No, it's fine. I understand." Emma moved toward the door. "I'll respect your boundaries. I just wish I knew what changed." As Emma reached the door, Claire felt panic rising. She couldn't let her leave like this, thinking she had done something wrong. "Emma, wait." Emma turned, hope flashing across her face. "It's not you," Claire said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's me. The way I feel when I'm with you. It's confusing." "Confusing how?" Emma asked, taking a step back toward Claire. Claire shook her head, unable to continue. "It doesn't matter. You're with Jake. You make him happy." "And what about what makes you happy?" Emma asked, her eyes searching Claire's face. "That stopped being the priority a long time ago," Claire said with a sad smile. A week later, Claire's phone rang. It was Jake, his voice sounding strange. "Mom, can we have dinner tonight? Just the two of us. There's something I want to talk about." Claire felt her stomach tighten with worry. Had Emma told him something? Had he somehow guessed her feelings? Of course, honey, is everything okay? I'd rather talk in person. Can you come over at 7? All day, Claire couldn't concentrate. She changed her outfit 3 times before driving to Jake's apartment. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as she imagined all the possible scenarios, each worse than the last. Jake opened the door with a smile that seemed forced. The apartment smelled of garlic and tomato sauce. He had made spaghetti, her favorite comfort food from when he was growing up. "Where's Emma?" Claire asked, looking around the apartment as if she might be hiding somewhere. Jake's smile faded a little. "That's part of what I wanted to talk about. Let's eat first." They sat at his small dining table, making small talk about work and the weather. Jake seemed distracted, pushing pasta around his plate more than eating it. "Jake, please tell me what's going on," Claire finally said. "You're scaring me." He put down his fork and looked at her directly. "Emma and I broke up." Claire felt the room spin slightly. "What? When? Why?" "3 days ago." He took a sip of water. "It was mutual, actually. But you seemed so happy together." Claire's heart was racing. "What happened?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "We realized we're better as friends. We care about each other. But there's something missing." Claire didn't know what to say. Part of her felt guilty relief, and another part genuine sadness for her son. "I'm sorry, honey. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, really." He reached across the table and took her hand. "Actually, I'm worried about you." "Me? Why?" Jake hesitated. "Emma said you two had some kind of misunderstanding. She seemed really upset about it." Claire looked down at her plate. "We had a small disagreement, that's all." "Mom, look at me." Jake's voice was gentle but firm. "Emma told me she thinks you're avoiding her because you feel uncomfortable about how close you two had become." Claire felt her cheeks flush. "She said that. She misses your friendship." Jake squeezed her hand. "And I think you miss her too." "Jake, it's complicated." "Because she was my girlfriend?" Jake's eyes were kind. "That's not an issue anymore, and honestly, Mom, it's been great seeing you make a close friend. You've been alone too long." Claire felt tears gathering in her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll call her," Jake suggested. "She's been pretty down." Claire wiped at her eyes. "Are you really okay with us being friends?" "I'm more than okay with it." Jake gave her a small smile. "Emma's special. She deserves good people in her life." After dinner, Claire drove home in a daze. Emma and Jake had broken up. Emma was upset about their friendship ending. Jake was encouraging her to call Emma. It was all too much to process. Claire sat in her parked car, staring at her dark house. The thought of going inside to that emptiness felt unbearable suddenly. Without letting herself think too much, she pulled out her phone and texted Emma. "Can we talk? I miss our friendship too." The response came almost immediately. "I'm at the bookstore cafe. Come now?" Claire's heart leaped. She started the car and drove to the bookstore, her mind racing with what she would say. When she arrived, the cafe was nearly empty. Emma sat alone by the window, a book open in front of her but her eyes staring out at the night. Claire paused at the door, taking in the sight of her. Emma looked tired, a little sad, but still beautiful in the soft lighting. She spotted Claire and her whole face transformed with a smile. "You came," Emma said as Claire sat across from her. "Jake told me about the breakup," Claire said. "I'm sorry." Emma shook her head slightly. "Don't be. It was the right decision for both of us. Are you okay?" "I'm better now that you're here." Emma's eyes were warm. "I've missed you, Claire." Claire felt a flutter in her chest. "I've missed you too, more than I should." "What does that mean?" Emma asked, leaning forward. Claire took a deep breath. "It means I've been confused about our friendship. About how I feel when I'm with you." Emma reached across the table and took Claire's hand. This time, Claire didn't pull away. "I've been confused too," Emma admitted. "But I'm not anymore." "What do you mean?" Emma's fingers tightened around Claire's. "I told Jake the truth, that I care about him, but my heart was pulling me in another direction, toward someone else." Claire felt dizzy with hope and fear. "Emma." For the next week, Claire and Emma talked every day, but they hadn't seen each other since that night at the bookstore. Both women wanted to take things slowly, to understand what was happening between them. Claire still worried about Jake, despite his assurances that he was fine with their friendship. On Friday evening, Emma called. I was thinking maybe we could have dinner tomorrow night, at your place. I could cook for you. Claire felt her heart skip. I'd like that very much. Is 7 okay? 7 is perfect. Claire spent all of Saturday cleaning her house and trying to calm her nerves. At 6:30, she changed her outfit for the fourth time, finally settling on a simple blue dress that Emma had once complimented. She lit candles in the living room and put on soft music. At precisely 7, the doorbell rang. Claire took a deep breath and opened the door. Emma stood there holding a bouquet of wildflowers and a grocery bag. You look beautiful, Emma said softly, her eyes taking in Claire's dress. Claire felt herself blush like a teenager. So do you. Please come in. Emma moved confidently into the kitchen and began unpacking her bag. I thought I'd make my grandmother's pasta recipe. It's simple but special. Claire poured them each a glass of wine. Can I help? You can keep me company, Emma said with a smile. And maybe chop these tomatoes. They worked together in the kitchen, moving around each other with growing ease. Their hands occasionally brushed, sending warm currents through Claire. The kitchen filled with the scent of garlic and basil, and the sound of their laughter. Jake called me yesterday, Emma said as she stirred the sauce. Claire looked up quickly. Oh. He wanted to make sure I'd called you, Emma smiled. He really wants us to be happy, Claire. It still feels strange, Claire admitted, talking about this with my son. I know. Emma turned to face her. But isn't it wonderful that he cares so much about both of us? Claire nodded, feeling a surge of love for her son. Yes, it is. During dinner, they talked about books and dreams and memories. Emma told stories about growing up in a small town, and Claire shared tales of Jake as a child. The candles burned lower, casting golden light across the table. How's your novel coming along? Emma asked as they cleared the dishes. I finished it, Claire said. Last night, actually. Emma's eyes widened. Claire, that's amazing. Can I read it? You're the only one I want to read it, Claire admitted. It's been my companion through all of this confusion. It helped me understand what I was feeling. And what were you feeling? Emma asked quietly. Claire took Emma's hand and led her to the couch. They sat close, their knees touching. I was feeling afraid, and guilty, and more alive than I have in years. Emma's eyes were soft in the candlelight. And now? Now I'm just afraid, Claire whispered. Afraid that this is too good to be true, that I'm too old for you, that people won't understand, that Jake might say he's fine but deep down he's not. Emma reached up and touched Claire's cheek. I've never cared much about what people think, and age is just a number to me. What matters is how we feel together. And how do you feel? Claire asked, her voice barely audible. Like I found something rare and precious. Emma leaned closer. Like I've been looking for you without knowing it. Claire's heart was pounding. Emma was so close now, her lips just inches away. I never expected this, Claire whispered. Not at my age. Not with you. Sometimes the best things in life are unexpected, Emma said. When their lips finally met, it was gentle and questioning at first, then deeper and more certain. Claire felt like she was falling and flying at the same time. Emma's hands were in her hair, and Claire pulled her closer, all her doubts momentarily forgotten in the warmth of their embrace. Later, they sat on the porch swing, wrapped in a blanket against the cool night air. Emma's head rested on Claire's shoulder, their fingers intertwined. Stars glittered above them in a clear sky. What happens now? Claire asked. Now we take one day at a time, Emma said. We get to know each other in this new way. We figure it out together. People will talk, Claire said, in a small town like this. Let them. Emma squeezed her hand. I'm not ashamed of how I feel about you. Claire turned to look at Emma, this beautiful young woman who had somehow found her way into her heart. Neither am I, she realized, not anymore. They sat in comfortable silence, the swing gently rocking. The novel was finished, but Claire knew their story was just beginning. There would be challenges ahead, difficult conversations, adjustments to make. But sitting here, with Emma warm against her side and the night stretching peaceful around them, Claire believed that whatever came next, they would face it together. 3 months later, Claire stood in her kitchen arranging flowers in a vase. The house was filled with the scent of baking apple pie, Emma's favorite. Through the window she could see her garden flourishing in the summer sun. The basil Emma had brought her that day had grown into a lush plant, joined now by tomatoes, peppers, and flowers. The doorbell rang, and Claire smoothed her dress before answering it. Jake stood on the porch, holding a bottle of wine. "Right on time," Claire said, hugging him. "Something smells amazing," Jake said, following her inside. "Is that Mom's famous apple pie smell? Emma loves it, so I thought it would be nice for tonight." Jake placed the wine on the counter and leaned against it, watching Claire move around the kitchen. "You look happy, Mom." Claire smiled. "I am happy. Emma's good for you." Jake's voice was warm with approval. "I've never seen you like this." Claire paused in her preparations. "Jake, are you really okay with all of this? With me and Emma?" Jake crossed the kitchen and took his mother's hands. "Mom, we've been over this." "Yes, it was a little weird at first. But Emma and I weren't right for each other. We both know that now. But she's so much younger than me, and she was your girlfriend, and she makes you light up like a Christmas tree." Jake interrupted with a grin. "That's all that matters to me. Besides, you two have way more in common than she and I ever did." Claire hugged her son tightly. "How did I raise such a wonderful man? Just lucky, I guess," Jake teased. The back door opened, and Emma came in carrying a basket of fresh herbs from the garden. Her cheeks were flushed from the sun, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. When she saw Jake, her face broke into a wide smile. "Jake, you're early." She set down the basket and gave him a friendly hug. "I brought the wine," he said, holding up the bottle. "Perfect. That will go great with the salmon Claire's making." The three of them moved around the kitchen together, preparing dinner with the ease of people who had done this many times before. Jake told stories about his new job, Emma talked about the writing workshop she was teaching at the library, and Claire shared news about her novel, which a small publishing house had expressed interest in. As they sat down to eat, Claire looked at the two people she loved most in the world and felt a wave of gratitude. The past 3 months had not been without challenges. There had been awkward moments, raised eyebrows from neighbors, and a difficult conversation with her sister, who didn't understand at first. But there had also been so much joy, so much discovery, so much love. After dinner, they moved to the porch with glasses of wine. The evening was warm, fireflies blinking in the gathering dusk. Jake sat on the steps while Claire and Emma took the swing. "Oh, I almost forgot," Jake said, reaching into his pocket. "I have news." "What kind of news?" Claire asked. "I've been seeing someone." Jake's smile was shy. "Her name is Olivia. She's a teacher at the elementary school." "That's wonderful," Emma exclaimed. "When do we get to meet her?" "Actually, I was thinking about the 4 of us going out next weekend, if that's not too weird." Claire reached for Emma's hand, squeezing it gently. "Not weird at all. We'd love to meet her." Later, after Jake had gone home, Claire and Emma lay together in the porch hammock, looking up at the stars. Emma's head rested on Claire's shoulder, their bodies fitting together perfectly. "Happy?" Emma asked softly. "More than I ever thought possible," Claire replied, kissing the top of Emma's head. "I finished your novel yesterday," Emma said. "It's beautiful, Claire. The world needs to read it." "You really think so?" "I know so." Emma shifted to look into Claire's eyes. "It's a story about second chances, about finding love when you least expect it. People need stories like that." Claire touched Emma's cheek gently. "I never thought I'd have a second chance at my age." "Life is full of surprises," Emma said, smiling. "I certainly never expected to fall in love with my boyfriend's mother." They both laughed at that, the sound drifting up into the night sky. "I love you," Claire whispered. It still felt new and precious to say those words. "I love you too," Emma replied, leaning up to kiss her. "Always will." As they held each other under the stars, Claire thought about the strange journey that had brought them here. From that first Sunday dinner to this moment, their path had been unexpected and sometimes difficult, but so very worth it. Inside the house, on Claire's desk, sat her finished manuscript. The main character, like Claire, had found love after loss, had discovered that life could surprise you at any age, that the heart doesn't follow rules about who you should love or when. Tomorrow, she would send it to the publisher. Tomorrow, she would share her story with the world. But tonight was just for them, for whispered words of love, for gentle touches, for the miracle of finding each other against all odds. Tonight was another page in their own story, which was only just beginning.